The girl cries at her father's coffin and says he's still alive. When cops opened it, they freaked out. The funeral of Officer Daniel Reed was supposed to be simple, formal, final. The white marble casket lay on a polished base surrounded by flowers and uniformed officers. The sun glinted off polished badges. The American flag draped across the coffin rustled lightly in the wind. Everything was by the book, except the girl. She didn't cry like the others. She screamed, "That's not my dad." 6-year-old Naomi, Daniel's adopted daughter, was nearly hysterical. Her small fists pounded the side of the coffin. Her eyes were red and wild, face twisted with something more than grief. "He's not in there. Don't put it down." People tried to calm her. A woman in black scooped her up, whispering, "It's just the pain talking, sweetie. He's gone now. We say goodbye." But Naomi thrashed out of her arms, dropped to her knees beside the coffin again, and shouted, "He told me not to trust them." That stopped everything. Even the priest froze. 3 days earlier, Officer Daniel Reed, a well-respected 38-year-old white cop with a reputation for clean policing, had been pronounced dead after a fiery explosion during an alleged cartel raid. His cruiser was found incinerated on a side road. A body burned beyond recognition had been recovered from the wreckage and rushed through for a closed-casket burial. No autopsy had been completed, no DNA test done, just a uniform, a badge, and a story that fit too neatly. Daniel's daughter didn't buy it. And now, in front of a full crowd of officers, mourners, and media, Naomi was making everyone uncomfortable. "Please," she sobbed. "Open it just once. If you love him, open it." Officer Ramirez, standing at the far end of the formation, narrowed his eyes. He had worked with Daniel for almost a decade, trusted him like a brother. He'd been at the scene after the explosion. He'd seen the photos of the wreck. But something about this felt wrong. Ramirez stepped forward. "I want it opened." The funeral director blinked in confusion. "Officer, we don't. I want it open. Now." It took 5 minutes. They peeled back the flower arrangements, removed the flag, unlocked the latches, and when the lid lifted, gasps burst through the air like gunfire. The man inside wasn't Daniel. Not exactly. Similar hair, right? Uniform. But the face, subtly wrong. A crooked nose where Daniel had none. No scar on the chin from the high school baseball injury Ramirez knew well. Hands too pale, too soft, and most important of all, the wrist tattoo was missing. A small anchor Daniel had gotten in honor of his Navy brother. Ramirez staggered back. This isn't him." Chaos. Cameras clicked. A woman screamed. Officers rushed to shield the crowd from the open casket. Naomi, meanwhile, stood still, then said quietly, "He told me someone was following him. He said, if anything ever happened and people rushed to bury him, I had to stop it." Ramirez knelt beside her. "Who was following him, Naomi?" She hesitated. "He never said a name, but he said it wasn't just gang guys. He said it might be someone who wore the same badge." That line hit like a punch to the chest. Because Daniel had started acting strangely the week before his supposed death. He missed roll call, stopped replying to group messages. When asked, he said he was working a side tip on cartel weapons shipments. Nothing in the system reflected it. He'd gone quiet. Then, boom, dead. Except he wasn't. And the man in the coffin, a body double. The uniform and badge were real. Daniel's originals. But the man wearing them had no known identity. No prints. No next of kin. Hours later, a second twist emerged. A voicemail, hidden in Daniel's private backup line, meant to trigger if his main phone was disabled. The message was only 6 seconds. "If you're hearing this, I was right. Don't trust the chain. Watch the guy in admin. He's not clean." It was timestamped 4 hours before his death. The guy in admin? Internal Affairs Officer Mark Dempsey, a man who'd supervised the scene after the crash. A man who'd ordered the body moved without full autopsy. A man who suddenly couldn't be reached. That night, Ramirez sat with Naomi outside the precinct. "You did more than cry, you know," he told her gently. "You stopped them from hiding something." Naomi looked up, still tear-streaked. "I just knew Daddy wouldn't leave without saying goodbye," he promised. Ramirez smiled. "Then we're going to find him. Not just because he's a cop, but because he's your dad." And Naomi whispered, "He's not done fighting. I can feel it." The official investigation reopened before the sun rose the next morning. The man buried in Officer Daniel Reed's place remained unidentified. But the voicemail Naomi had led them to, that changed everything. Internal Affairs Officer Mark Dempsey, a trusted man for over 15 years, vanished that same night. Left behind were 2 burner phones and a private storage locker full of unfiled reports. Reports that mentioned Daniel Reed's name again and again. But the real breakthrough didn't come from a search warrant. It came from a knock. At 5:42 a.m., an exhausted, muddy man limped into a ranger station 42 miles west of town, barely conscious, dehydrated, and injured. His hands were torn, his face bruised and sunburned. But when the ranger asked his name, he whispered, "Daniel Reed." Daniel had been alive for 3 days, held in a trap so twisted it didn't even feel real. It had started weeks earlier when he uncovered traces of a dirty shipment report tied to confiscated cartel weapons. The paperwork didn't match. Dates were off. The guns were destroyed, but ballistics from a recent gang shooting showed the same serial numbers. He brought it to Dempsey, who smiled, nodded, and told him, "Leave it to me." Daniel didn't. And that was his mistake. On the night of his disappearance, Daniel was chasing a false tip about a meeting in an abandoned roadside facility. What he didn't know was that the cartel wasn't the main threat. It was Dempsey. He'd struck a quiet deal, funneling seized weapons to certain gangs in exchange for large payouts and tip-offs that made him look good on paper. Daniel had stumbled onto it all. They needed him gone. In that dark warehouse, Daniel was ambushed, injected, stripped of ID, his clothes burned. They shoved him into a pit below the foundation of the building, chained his ankle to rusted pipes, dumped scraps of food beside him, and left. They assumed the fire would finish the cover-up. They planted the decoy body, one of their own loyal men who had failed the job. Dempsey spun the report, pressured for a quick burial, no questions. But they misjudged Daniel's will to live. He chewed through the corner of a plastic zip tie binding his wrist, used a rock to loosen the pipe, shimmied out of the ankle cuff. He limped, half-dragging himself through a storm drain and into the woods. He was alone for 2 days, no compass, no shoes. But he wasn't thinking about pain. He was thinking about Naomi. He hadn't left her a proper goodbye. And somehow he just knew she wouldn't accept it. When he reached the ranger's cabin, he collapsed. But he didn't pass out until he whispered, "My daughter, she's waiting." Back at the hospital, Naomi stood frozen as the doors opened. And there he was, gaunt, bloodied, carried on a stretcher, but alive. Her scream wasn't pain this time. It was joy. She bolted forward. "Daddy." And Daniel, eyelids fluttering, smiled. Still the loudest voice in the room, he rasped. The aftermath made national headlines. Dempsey was arrested 2 days later, hiding near the border. Files found in his possession confirmed years of smuggling evidence and at least 3 prior cover-ups involving questionable deaths. Daniel testified before the Senate committee 6 months later. But nothing moved him more than the small ceremony held on a Sunday morning under the same tree where his fake funeral once happened. A new plaque was placed in the precinct garden. Naomi's voice, a daughter's truth can save a father's life. Daniel never returned to active duty. Instead, he opened a center to support the children of wrongfully imprisoned or deceased officers, naming it Naomi's Hope. And every day when he walked through those doors, he remembered what she said at his grave. He's not gone. She was right. She saved him, not with weapons or force, but with the power of knowing her father better than anyone else ever could. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.